Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for a quick little presentation on Takeout 101 and how to navigate a post-lockdown landscape and stay open. There's a lot of different things obviously going on, and so we wanted to take a look at what can restaurants be doing to kind of optimize their takeout, since all of their dine-in is minimized unless you have an outside patio. So pivoting for takeout, there's kind of a couple things that you really want to take into consideration. Re-engineering your menu is kind of one of the biggest things that you can do to simplify not only your offering, but also making it easier for your staff to handle orders and realistically for your guests to be placing those orders. Having less options and having very simple modifications, nothing complicated. And then also having low cost items so that people who are looking for a value can have more options when taking out. In the store level, setting up organized packing and pickup areas really helps not just for you and your staff to stay organized, but also to make it clear to your guests there's dedicated areas for each thing so that you can try to minimize contact and cross-contamination. There's other things that you can do as far as tamper-proof and contactless packaging that makes it so that the guests might feel a little safer knowing that their takeout containers have had the least amount of people coming in contact with it. One of the biggest things that I feel like that people need to be doing throughout all of this is really managing your communication with guests, whether it's within your building or within online or on social media. However you're communicating with guests, having that clear, concise communication to them on when can you be placing an order, how to place an order, where should they be going to pick stuff up. That's really important because if it's not clear, your guests aren't mind readers. They're not going to be able to necessarily know where you want them to go or if you want them waiting outside. How they should be picking up that order so that they can not only keep themselves safe, but everybody else safe. So it's really important to communicate as much as possible with your guests. So let's take a little deeper look into some of these things. For reworking your menu, one of the things that you can do is utilize and leverage your sales data either on Focus Cloud reporting or even your store level reports to really look at how can you be modifying your menus, how can you minimize your inventory costs, or even how can I look at my day parts to optimize my hours of operation? Maybe I don't need to be open as late as I normally am, or maybe I do takeout during the day for lunch, but I only offer patio dining in the evenings or on the weekends. Really leveraging that sales data to help you make those business decisions. The other piece that you're going to want to look at is figuring out ways to maximize your ordering convenience for your guests. Okay? Allowing your guests to be able to place orders online, whether I am a guest and I want to pick up food, or even if I am dining at the location on a patio and want to be able to offer the menu online for guests to look at, but maybe I'm also allowing them to place their order online so I can minimize the contact of the server having to necessarily put in the order and send it to the kitchen. Okay. So being able to manage the orders and the guest experience yourself, not necessarily relying on outside sources to manipulate that, whether it's through some of the delivery platforms and stuff like that. Having your own online ordering really allows you to maintain that guest experience and have it detailed out the way you want it, as opposed to having DoorDash or Postmates or Uber Eats really be the one managing that guest experience. Contactless payments is huge right now. This is allowing you to be able to not only order off premises, but also accept payments off premises. So if you're augmenting your business with doing deliveries or offsite events, this allows you to have a device where you can accept those payments outside of your business walls. Meaning this is also something that you can utilize for expanded dining experiences, whether it's into extended patio areas, parking lots, sidewalks, middle of the street, wherever you're having to expand out your dining area. The Focus On devices can move with you. All of them are LTE ready, meaning that you can use cellular networks to utilize them. You don't have to have your own wireless network. One way we've been seeing people use these a lot is curbside payments. So instead of having to have the guests come in to pick up an order, allowing them to pick it up curbside and be able to pay right then and there from a Focus On device so that they never have to leave their car. So with all of these things, kind of we're looking at how do we use this technology to stay open? And realistically, there's a lot of things that you can be doing to minimize that contact exposure, whether it's through online ordering, text messaging for order ready, contactless payments. All of these things allow you to minimize that contact exposure, not just for your guests' safety, but for your staff as well. And a lot of this too, utilizing the technology to optimize your operational costs and be proactive for making adaptive changes, whether it's to your menu, whether it's to your style of service, whether it's changing how you're doing takeout based upon your different volumes, watching all of this data and using the technology to kind of help augment your business so that you can stay open. The other biggest piece of technology that I feel like people aren't utilizing enough is actually your marketing efforts to make sure that people are still coming in, whether it be through your own email blasts, your website, or social media. Being in front of your guests online is allowing you to communicate to them and let them know, hey, we're still here, we're open, we're here for you, and here's the ways that we're keeping everyone safe and trying to be proactive and trying to still give you an experience while maintaining everyone's safety. So with that, I'd like to bring Brock from our team on so that we can kind of chat a little bit more in depth on some of these things. Hey, Brock.
Hey, Julie.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. So one of the first things we kind of talked about was taking a deeper look at restaurants' menus and kind of deciding, what do I keep? What do I get rid of? Do I start over completely from scratch? How am I changing my menu? And what am I looking at?
Right. So what I'm seeing the successful people do is they're looking obviously first at, the costs, both, what labor-wise, what costs a lot, and food cost-wise, what costs a lot, and getting rid of those items. I don't think you're going to want to just recreate your menu altogether because obviously you have a brand and you've got customer favorites. But I do think you want to look at how you're offering those items and how they transport when they're packaged and how they're consumed when they're at the person's house or home, because you still want to be able to give them an experience. So do you compartmentalize those items so that they're building it while they're at home, like a taco family meal where you have the tortillas and you have the meat and the fillings and you have the salsas and the other toppings, and then they create the dish at home so they still kind of have that experience that they would have at the restaurant? Things like that is what I think you need to look at, as well as just the costs.
Can't forget the gallon of margaritas, because that's my favorite part.
I had a double old fashioned last night and it was delicious.
Oof. Oof. One of the interesting things that I've seen people do too is a couple of places trying to maintain their experiences at their locations. Like I've seen a couple coffee shops where they've offered brunch to go, or there's a tea shop that offers their afternoon tea in a little box so that you can kind of take that home and have that same experience. It's not exactly the same, but it gives that ability to have a similar experience at home that you enjoyed at the restaurant. And other pieces I've seen is people doing different styles of takeout, whether it's offering things frozen or pre-cooked and chilled, so that you can have meals for the week if you really wanted to, and take stuff home, so that it's more than just buying takeout. I'm also having pre-prepared meals as well.
Right. And even if it's not these pre-prepared meals or the whole experience that we're talking about, even if you're selling a burger, really look at how you're packaging that. Can you separate out the lettuce and the onion and the tomato off to the side and the sauces to the side, so that when the customer gets that burger home, that might have been their favorite burger that they have in the restaurant, but when they get it home, it's not soggy and dead and not good. So even simple things like how you're packaging a basic item like a burger.
Right. And we really need to look at too, is because a lot of the guests, if you think about it, knowing your guests and where they're coming from, if the majority of your guests don't live within a 5-mile radius of you, if you're still trying to capture them and have them come in or order takeout from you, you got to assume that they're having to drive 20-30 minutes to get home, to take that food home and eat it. And understanding what's going to travel well is, I think, a huge piece to that packaging.
Mm-hmm. And reheat. So it's 20 to 30 minutes to drive home, and then probably another 15-20 minutes before they get everybody to sit down at the table.
Right, exactly.
So
what are some of the ways that you're seeing operations minimize contact?
So there's all of the technologies that we've talked about, right, with contactless payments and online ordering and all that. But when it comes down to it, the best experiences that I've seen people present, both professionally here at Focus and in my personal life when I'm getting takeout food, is the people who communicate explicitly. How do I order? When do I order? Where do I order? How do I pay? Where do I pick up? When do I pick up? When I am picking up, where do I stand? Communicating all that in excruciating detail, so that by the time I get through that process of ordering and picking up and all that sort of thing, I'm not contacting with hardly anybody. The bad experiences I've had is when there's no communication, whatever, and then there's just a bunch of us at the host stand and we're all putting our masks on and off and trying to get our credit cards out, and it's a mess. So I think really what's important is communicating what your process is so the customer knows the logistics of A to Z, creating an order to paying and picking up the order.
Yeah, and I feel like that a lot of that comes into, again, that conversation of managing communication. How am I, if I'm offering takeout and that's going to be one of my main sources of revenue, I need to have that down to a science of communicating to my guests, of saying, hey, we're going to text message you when your order is ready. Until you get that text message stating that it's ready, don't come in our doors. Don't you want to minimize people just standing around waiting, and whether it's trying to put orders into cubbies for pickup and sending them a text message of saying, hey, your order's ready in cubby number 5, and having them pick up that way so that they're not having any sort of contact with somebody, whether it's, having them wait in their car until they're text messaged, or even wait outside until they get a text or some form of verbal communication saying, hey, your order is ready for pickup.
Right. And you can think of it like, we did that as restaurant people. We had servers communicating constantly.
Right.
When you sat at the table, you got the menu, all that sort of thing. So it's just a different steps of service that you have to create.
One of the interesting things that I'm starting to see people use is, we have focus online, which allows you to obviously put in those on, an online order for pickup. But something that people are starting to think about utilizing it for and actually implement it is online ordering for dine-in, minimizing that contact so that people aren't having to have that same level of contact. If I have very simplistic menus where it's easy and they're not having to ask a ton of questions, and maybe I don't have servers at that point. Maybe I just have people running food and checking in on people, and they can place all of their orders online as opposed to with a server. That and the handhelds, I think, are two big pieces of technology that really allow that interaction to kind of be, I don't want to say minimized, but it's you can still have that level of taking care of the guest, but not having to have as much back and forth with interaction as much.
Right. And again, communicating that new steps of service to the guests so they know what's going on.
How can restaurants be communicating with their guests to make sure that they're having the best experience?
Well, most of them still have email lists. I would blast out emails, text messages, if that's part of your list. Update, get your website. Everybody's looking at your website, so make sure that has, this new steps of service, new ordering process. Your Google page, make sure that is up to date. And then, like you mentioned, your social, just be blasting on your socials.
Yeah.
Constantly. Even if you think it's enough, it's not, because everybody's looking at their social at different times. So just keep pumping that out there. So it's easy to figure out how to do business with you.
Right. And I feel like the ones that are being successful at it, I'm seeing them post on their social media at least once a day,
Right.
reiterating what their operating hours are, how you can, how they're offering service, are they offering, patio dine-in service? Are they only doing takeout?
Right.
Do they have online ordering? Reiterating and communicating that almost on a daily basis, because as we've all seen, day to day, everything is changing.
Mm-hmm.
And you might have done things one way one day, and now today's a new day. How are we operating today?
Right.
And unfortunately, that's the reality right now. And it is very confusing to a guest, and really hurts that experience if they don't understand how they should be ordering and how they should be doing these things. And it makes it more painful, if you're clear and concise with them on what they should be doing, and you make it an easy, seamless process, then they're going to be more likely to come back and still continue to dine with you during all of this.
Correct.
Well, cool. Thank you so much for chatting with me, Brock.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for joining us. If you have any questions at all, Brock and I are always happy to talk about logistics that are, challenging you in your operation and trying to help you come up with creative solutions, whether they're tech related or not tech related. We still like to utilize the things that, the experiences that we've had and what we're seeing everyone implement to try to help as many people as possible figure out how they can be successful during this time. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.